In today's video, I'm going to be talking about the put-call ratio tab, which can be found over here on the left side under our sentiment section, the put-call ratio tab. Puts and calls are often used in options tradings, but even if you're not an options trader, this can be really useful for just kind of gauging overall bullish or bearish market sentiment. If you're unfamiliar, puts are bearish bets made on the market and calls are bullish bets made on the market. So overall, if investors have more calls than they do puts on the market, then overall investors are more bullish than they are bearish on the market, and vice versa. If investors have more puts than they do calls placed on the market, then overall investor market sentiment is bearish. We can actually keep track of how many puts and calls are being placed on the market on a day-by-day basis. As you hover over this graph here on the put-call ratio, you'll see day by day, and you'll see the overall put-call ratio number. Now, some of these days are the same for, gaps in where the market is closed on the weekends and things like that, but you'll see a little dot right on the line every single day that you go past. This line will then tell you if the put-call ratio has changed. You'll see some days like here where there's a big block here, you'll see that the overall put-call ratio was 1.29, and then it held that through the weekend until we get to March 25th, where it came down to 1.02, and you'll see that little tiny dot right on the white line there. You can also see it on the white line right there. So we're looking for the little dot on the white line in the overall put-call ratio. Now, my favorite way to use the put-call ratio is to look for big groupings of multiple days in a row in the same sentiment. Because if we're bouncing from bullish to bearish sentiment day after day, then investors are probably a little confused. They don't have a strong bias for where they think the market is going to go. But if we see it consistently day after day in the same sentiment area, then we know that investors have made up their mind and they are confident that the market is either bullish or bearish wherever that sentiment may be. Now, there's two main ways to use the put-call ratio. One is to look for extended periods of time where this white line is either in the blue sentiment section or the bearish sentiment section. And we actually have two good examples here with the data that we have. So we can see all the way back to February 7th, we have about 3 months worth of data here. We can see February 7th all the way up to present day, which is May 7th today. So here on February 7th, and honestly all the way up until about March 21st, you'll see that we had way more days in the bullish sentiment section than we did in the bearish sentiment section. Yes, for a day or two, it did pop up into the red, but overall, from, again, about February 7th all the way up until about March 21st, we had way more bullish sentiment days than we did bearish sentiment days. That tells me that for a very long, extended period of time, again, over a month, investors were very bullish on the stock market day after day, continuing their bullish outlook. Then things began to shift a little bit, and we saw on March 22nd, again, if we're following this little white dot that runs along the line here, we'll see that it popped up way up into the bearish sentiment section. And even though it bounced around just a little bit and even crossed into bullish sentiment for a day or two, from March 22nd up until about April 10th, we had way more bearish sentiment days than we did bullish sentiment days. So I know that during that time period, investors were feeling much more bearish about the stock market. Since then, we've seen kind of a mix of both. We've got bullish sentiment days, we've got bearish sentiment days, back into bullish, back into bearish, so on and so forth. Investors haven't quite made up their mind. The other way to take a look at this is to look at this circle right here, which shows the most current and up-to-date put-call ratio information. The higher the number is, the more bearish I know it is. We can follow this line here. This neutral line is at 1. And the more bearish we get up to a 1.4 bearish put-call ratio, or we can drop down to a 0.6 bullish put call ratio. Right now, I see the red. I know we're 1.29. That's pretty high, close up to 1.3. So I know that currently investors are feeling bearish on the market sentiment as a whole. So I might look for bearish setups today as opposed to bullish setups today. Hoping that momentum and sentiment continues on for the next couple of days, and so will the markets. If you'd like to learn more about the put call ratio, we have this little paragraph down here that you can read as well.